When you watch the movie Joker, it's clear that this
Can you please stop bothering my kid?
Sorry.
is a different experience than this. But why? Well, there's plenty to point to which contributes to this feeling. There's the cinematography, the score, the dark and gritty atmosphere, the acting. All these things make this film stand out from other comic movies. And I do use that term as sort of shorthand. I mean superhero comic book movies, and specifically the big two, Marvel and DC. Even more specifically, kind of the last 20 years or so of those movies. Joker, in that ecosystem, is the first of its kind. Acting, music, and cinematography, while all crucial to the experience of a movie, are not enough to differentiate yet another comic book film as unique in a market saturated with comic book and superhero films. After all, we already have dark and gritty comic book films, like The Dark Knight or Logan. But even those incredible movies don't differentiate within their market as much as Joker does. And I'd argue this is because of one essential writing decision the creators made, and that is the genre choice. Now, Joker is in fact another comic adaptation, so we as consumers compare and contrast it with these other Marvel and DC films. But in terms of writing, Joker is a different genre than all of these comic book films. And it's broken away in a fashion that not even The Dark Knight or Logan have done. And this seems to have been recognized. First, what have the previous Marvel and DC films done with their genre? Second, what is Joker's genre choice and why does it matter? Hopefully from this, we'll see the importance of knowing the genre you're writing in and using that to provide our audiences with new, refreshing stories. So let's get started.
If you just smile.
Number one, I've been watching these comic movies every year since I was in 8th grade, and they have literally all been action films.
It's important to know, like, Joker's not an action movie. Joker's not an action movie. Joker's not an action movie.
And that's the big thing. That's kind of the main point of this, actually. All Marvel and DC films, so far as I know, have been action films. Joker, on the other hand, has innovated in that space because, despite how easy it would have been, they chose not to make it an action film. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I don't really need anything else. But no, let's not take this for granted. Think about this. Every Marvel film you have ever seen is an action film. They all follow an action plot in terms of their external content genre. And here's a quick way to identify that. One of many key characteristics in a story's genre is what we call the value at stake. It means what defines a win and a loss. You can think about how a scene contributes to the character's failures or successes over the course of the story in terms of this value at stake.
Every story turns on a value, and that value is determined by the global content genre. If you're writing an action story, for example, the global spectrum is life to death.
In an action movie, the value at stake is life and death, whether it's the life of self, or the survival of loved ones, or entire populations. And yeah, this is the plot of every Marvel and DC film. Looking at Marvel for a second. Even the films that we consider innovative in its library, like the comedic Guardians of the Galaxy or the more heist-inspired Ant-Man don't commit to different external content genres than action. At the end of the day, it's still about someone saving someone from a thing or killing a bad guy who is also trying to kill you or someone else. Move over to DC and yeah, it's the same thing. Action film, action film, action film, action film, action film, action film, action film. Now, I want to take a step back. This isn't a bad thing. These are incredible, incredible movies. I've enjoyed so many of these superhero stories. In fact, by staying consistent to this external content genre, the creators are doing what they should do. They're giving audiences a proper idea of what to expect when they come to a Marvel or DC movie, and then they're delivering on that expectation. But with how saturated we are with these superhero stories now, I don't think we're going to feel underserved on our need for action stories if now some of the Marvel and DC movies break from the action restraint. And this is why Joker excites me right now. It means something new for Marvel and DC movies, because Joker tells a different kind of story.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
We've established that Joker is not an action film, because the value at stake is not life and death. For sure, people do die, but if you were to try to pitch Joker as an action film, the audience would be actually disappointed, because it doesn't deliver that kind of story. The stakes are different, therefore the roadmap is different. But what are the stakes? What is the external content genre of Joker? Well, this part is actually debatable, which does happen in story analysis. Sometimes you see elements from multiple genres, and pinning it down can be hard. But after spending a lot of time analyzing this movie, I'm going to make this claim about the movie's external content genre. I believe Joker is a society story.
Say the line, Bart!
Society!
Okay, yeah, I know, it's the thing, it's the meme, but I truly am being serious here. This isn't just convenience. I honestly thought this movie was a performance story for a long time, something like Rocky or Whiplash. But the more I look at it, the more that Joker appears to be a society story. A society story at its heart is a story of rebellion. It's a story of subjugated people confronting their subjugators. And to see how Joker delivers this type of story, we don't need to look any further than what we've looked at before, the value at stake. Unlike the life and death stakes of an action plot, the value at stake in a society story, and thus in Joker, is impotence and power. Arthur begins his story powerless. The gap between the establishment and the marginalized of Gotham is insurmountable. Funding is being cut from his mental health services, and the wealthy Thomas Wayne doesn't even seem to care for the downtrodden people that he wants to lead. It's only when Arthur ends up killing some rich Wayne Enterprise employees, causing himself to become a sort of symbol for a protest movement against Wayne, that the value shifts, and Arthur now has a little more power against the establishment than he did before. This value shift goes up and down the scale throughout the film, with some of the biggest shifts being the reveal that Arthur's seemingly loving mother was actually his abuser for all his life, the murders Arthur decides to commit in order to take power back, and the moment when Arthur's TV hero uses clips of his stand-up routine in order to mock him. As the story builds toward the climax, the protests that Arthur has galvanized grow to a boiling point. When he murders Murray on television, it brings in the story's final value shift. The subjugated rise against the subjugators. Murray ends up dead, and so does Thomas Wayne. The downtrodden have taken just a bit of power back. However small, it is a win for the protagonist and the group he represents within the world of the story. By moving away from tradition and writing in a new external content genre for comic book films, The writers of Joker allowed themselves to write a new story that couldn't have been told in the confines of their traditional genre. And I know this movie has been called Baby's First Taxi Driver or King of Comedy, but those aren't superhero comic book adaptations. And that's what has me so excited here. So what can we take away from this? Well, when you consider this movie and the writing choices it represents, think about your own writing project and your genre choices in it. First, you need to know what genre you're writing in, and that way you can deliver a story that will truly satisfy your audience. Second, if it's typical for your type of story to be one certain plot, consider what choosing a different external plot could do for you. You never know what you may find.
Good night. And always remember, that's...
Somebody's getting it, somebody.